Chapter 1677. You want to taste bitterness again? Yiqing Luo looked at Pharaoh He with a smile that didn't look like a smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, could this old man be a masochist? Every time he answered a question he had to be coy and not answer. Then he waited for her to suffer all kinds of horrible abuse before he pretended to answer her with much difficulty. Actually, he must be secretly pleased, right? He actually liked her sadistic behavior, didn't he? This thought made Yiqing Luo shiver uncontrollably. Suddenly he could not look at Pharaoh Crane in the eye. Pharaoh He didn't know what Yiqing Luo was thinking about, but when he heard Yiqing Luo's extremely calm question, he lowered his head and replied in a trembling voice, "Find the God Emperor's tomb, awaken the God Emperor's emperor, and obtain the God Emperor's inheritance." The inheritance of the Divine Emperor? Hearing these 4 words, Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. The dark forces actually wanted to obtain the Divine Emperor's inheritance? The dark forces were so ambitious. The power inherited by the ruler of the highest plane was enough to shake both the upper and lower worlds, and even beyond the 2 worlds. The dark forces did not only want to dominate the Nirvana realm. He even wanted to rule the upper realm. It was no wonder that Pharaoh Crane would reveal an expression of disbelief at her question. Looking at Pharaoh Crane's trembling body, Yizichen could not help but sigh. Yiqing Luo's squinted eyes slowly surfaced a meaningful arc. Then her pink lips curled into a smile. She sheathed the dagger and smiled sweetly. One last question. It was the last question. Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. He really didn't want to answer Yiqing Luo's questions anymore. All of these questions made him break out in cold sweat. If Yiqing Luo asked a few more questions, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. How do I completely seal the King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo fixed her eyes on Pharaoh He's eyes as she asked with a light smile word by word. The joy on Pharaoh He's face stiffened. His pupils dilated as he looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. This question was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. The King of Darkness is your master. I can understand why you don't dare to completely seal him. Yiqing Luo had a comforting expression as she patted Pharaoh He's shoulder. But I'm different. My motive for coming here is to seal the King of Darkness. Just kill me. Just kill me. Pharaoh Crane's face was ashen. I said you're silly, you're really silly. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, curled her fingers and knocked hard on Pharaoh Crane's head. The will to die in Pharaoh He's eyes was genuine. This question had clearly touched Pharaoh Crane's bottom line. If he forcefully interrogated him, he definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Yiqing Luo half squatted down as she leaned close to Pharaoh He's ear and laughed lightly. Haven't I said it before? I will fight to the death with the King of Darkness, and you will be the one who benefits in the end. Isn't that a win-win situation? In other words, this is the way to seal the King of Darkness. Tell her. She had completely sealed the King of Darkness. As for Pharaoh He, after leaving the Sanctuary of Darkness, he became the leader of the dark forces. This was a blatant temptation. Pharaoh Crane was silent. Yiqing Luo picked up the white jade bottle and shook it in front of his eyes. Her eyes squinted slightly as traces of craftiness swirled around. Of course, if you insist on protecting the King of Darkness's secret and wholeheartedly die, I can fulfill your wish. Coercion and temptation, using both methods at the same time. Pharaoh He finally compromised. He clenched his fists tightly as he had no strength to resist and could only obey. Chapter 1678. Runes on the wall? Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she looked towards the altar. That wall, which was filled with complicated patterns, was emitting a dense cold aura. Earlier when Pharaoh He had pinned her on that wall, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the touch of the King of Darkness who was sealed behind the wall. That wall. It was indeed the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh He, after I seal the King of Darkness completely, I will not forget about your benefits. Yiqing Luo turned her head as she revealed a radiant smile. Following that, she turned around and with a leap, she leapt onto the altar and headed straight towards that wall which was filled with runes. Her slender figure, under the dim and treacherous light, showed her oppressive aura. Pharaoh He laid on the ground as a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's back was facing him so he couldn't see her expression. But he could guess. Yiqing Luo must be extremely delighted. Then let's be delighted. Let's see who can laugh till the end. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light as though she was extremely happy. She squinted her eyes as an undetectable glint flashed past her eyes. She swept a glance at the surroundings. The circular altar was extremely spacious. In front of the seal array on the rune wall, a few burning lamps were placed. A palm-sized oil lamp was burning with a weak flame. The runes on the wall shone even more strangely. Could the King of Darkness have exhausted his energy and been sealed again? Yiqing Luo muttered softly as she stared at the rune array. Following that, she turned her head as her eyes were filled with joy. Pharaoh, what should I do to destroy this seal array? Use your Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart's energy to unleash your profound energy to the maximum and destroy the seal array along with the altar. Pharaoh, replied extremely quickly, this time without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Following that, she walked straight towards the rune seal array. She shut her eyes as she activated the profound Jade Heart's energy. A powerful and terrifying profound energy fluctuation started from her feet as it spread outwards. The profound Jade Heart's energy was completely unleashed. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. An enchanting red glow flashed past her eyes. She raised her palm and filled it with dark force. Slowly that palm descended. Pharaoh Crane looked at Yiqing Luo's actions nervously. His sinister eyes were filled with ecstasy. Because of his excitement, his severely injured body was thrown to the back of his mind. When this palm landed, as long as this palm strike landed, Yiqing Luo was completely finished. She would completely become a tool for the dark forces to generate qi. Swish, swish, swish. Just as Pharaoh Crane was filled with excitement, a few inexplicable voices could be heard in the air. On the altar, the aura of the woman who was releasing dense Xianxia had suddenly decreased. His palms were filled with dark force and turned into a hurricane. The hurricane swept up the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array in an instant. The weak burning light was instantly extinguished. The moment the lights were turned on, Pharaoh's face instantly turned pale. He staggered back a few steps. He wasn't able to stand properly as he fell heavily onto the ground. His face was filled with astonishment as he looked in disbelief at the young lady who had retracted her palm wind. His heart instantly sank to the bottom. Chapter 1679. Pharaoh was so infuriated that he was trembling. His throat was filled with a fishy taste as he spat out a mouthful of blood. If you said that Yiqing Luo was really innocent and accidentally extinguished those few oil lamps, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He had underestimated this wretched lass's ability. Underestimated this wretched lass's intelligence. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't see Pharaoh spitting out blood as she innocently blinked her eyes. Why not? I try again. This time I will definitely be able to destroy the altar and the ceiling array. Saying that, she had a sweet smile on her face as she flipped her palms. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up. The young lady's slender figure was like a rose blooming in the dark night. The red feather fan in her hands created numerous whirlwinds of sharp blades. In a few breaths' time the sharp blades shot out. In front of the ceiling formation, the few remaining oil lamps were sliced into several pieces with a crackling sound. The light stopped burning. There was no longer any oil lamp burning. Yiqing Luo sighed with a helpless look. Why is my profound qi becoming more and more disobedient? I have to try again. Her words had yet to finish. An angry and irritated voice suddenly rang out. Vessel, stop it at once. Immediately following that rune wall shot out an extremely chilly imposing manner, directly striking towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's fingertips flicked. The glower flame fan easily split apart that aura. Following that, her figure speedily retreated a few steps. Her lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly, unable to hold it in so quickly. A raging chilly aura swept across the entire dark sacred region. It indicated the King of Darkness's raging emotions. Yiqing Luo's smile grew as she retreated to Pharaoh. He sighed without a single trace of fear on her face. How did you know? How did you know? Pharaoh was completely in a panic. He sat on the ground helplessly as he looked at Yiqing Luo with a face full of terror. He couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo actually knew about his and his lord's plan, knew that the most important thing in his lord's altar was those few spirit lamps which looked like oil lamps. Do you think that I will believe your nonsense? Yiqing Luo chuckled as she looked at Pharaoh he as though she was looking at a fool. Impossible, clearly you. Pharaoh he could not figure out which step had gone wrong. The questions you answered were half true and half false. I have my own ways to differentiate. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards. She was obviously smiling, but it looked extremely horrifying. Bible. Impossible. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. The line of defense in his heart had completely collapsed. From the moment you answered the second question, I started to suspect you. It was impossible for the King of Darkness to fall into a deep slumber because of the seal. Pharaoh Crane's fearful expression, as well as the fact that he was too frightened to answer every single question she asked, only to be able to answer fluently in the end. It made Yiqing Luo develop suspicions towards him. He was afraid that the King of Darkness wasn't asleep at all. But through the dark secret arts, Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh he were communicating telepathically. The questions that Pharaoh Crane answered were all questions that the King of Darkness had agreed to. The King of Darkness had been sealed for 10,000 years, so if it wasn't through you guys, how would he know about the matters in the outside world? How did the King of Darkness find out that I have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Pharaoh why don't you save your effort to play your little tricks in front of me? Yiqing Luo looked at the fearful Pharaoh with interest. Her words weren't just for Pharaoh to hear. But, Chapter 1680. Yiqing Luo really wanted to roast what was in Pharaoh Crane's brain. Not long ago, the few of them and Xianxia were discussing. Was there someone from the lower realm behind her? Pharaoh quickly threw this suspicion to the back of his mind. The King of Darkness wanted to use Pharaoh Crane's mouth to get her to help him break the seal. She didn't even think that inside her azure dew bracelet lived an old man who knew the heavens above and the earth below. How could old man Tsong not know how to break and destroy the Saint Realm's seal? When Pharaoh told her to release all the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and destroy the altar, Old Man Tsong had already spoken out to stop her. Of course, even if Old Man Tsong didn't say anything to stop him, it was impossible for her to be obedient. He was not stupid. If he destroyed the altar, wouldn't he be helping the King of Darkness remove his seal? It was precisely because of Pharaoh's words. This made Yiqing Luo raise her guard completely. From this, she concluded that the King of Darkness did not fall into a deep slumber. Instead, he wanted to use her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade to forcefully break the seal. Even though her current strength was not enough to completely remove the Saint Realm seal. But at the very least it could speed up the process of removing the King of Darkness seal. In Old Man Tsong's words. Which was to say, as long as Yiqing Luo really followed Pharaoh's method and destroyed the altar, it was equivalent to Yiqing Luo destroying the spirit assimilation array in the blazing cavern, all in vain. From Old Man Tsong's mouth, Yiqing Luo found out that the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array was the key to the King of Darkness's temporary awakening. If she directly stepped forward and wanted to forcibly extinguish those burning lamps, she would have already been killed. The King of Darkness would never give her the chance to do so. The King of Darkness wanted to use her. Then, she decided to beat him at his own game and pretended to believe Pharaoh's words. She approached the lamps and extinguished them. Those oil lamps were known as soul lamps. As the name suggested, it was a lamp that gathered souls. As the lamp burned, the soul would not be extinguished. It was these few soul lamps that allowed the King of Darkness to have the ability to devour souls even when he was sealed in the Saint Domain. Destroyed the soul lamp. The soul was interrupted. The source of the King of Darkness power would also be cut off. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. It was indeed the right choice for her to infiltrate the dark forces and enter the darkness sanctuary. As long as the King of Darkness was heavily injured, no matter how powerful the dark forces were, they would not be able to do anything big for a long time. And during this period of time, it was enough for her to grow to the point where she could rival the King of Darkness. Yiqing Luo had this confidence. You slut. How dare. How dare. Pharaoh looked at the beautiful face in front of him and his eyes widened in horror. He and his lord had fallen into this bitch's trap. The soul lamp had been destroyed. How could the lord wake up? Pharaoh wanted to gather his mental power and cast a hex. But he had just condensed his mental energy. A tingling sensation quickly spread from the center of his head. His entire head felt like it was being torn apart. Ah! Pharaoh Crane fell to the ground in pain. He raised his head and smashed it against the ground. This kind of pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Chapter 1681. Pharaoh He's gaze fell onto the white jade bottle. His expression turned steely green as he roared furiously, "What have you done to me? How dare you?" Wasn't the white jade bottle in Yiqing Luo's hands the one which she used to bluff Pharaoh He, saying that it would make the butterfly saint technique follow him willingly? Actually, it was targeted at him, a poison which restrained his concentration. Pharaoh He was furious and annoyed, but most of it was fear and astonishment. The young lady in front of him. She was just 15 years old. But she had such a scheming mind. Her thoughts were meticulous and every step was calculated. Even for an old man like him who had lived for more than half of his life, fighting openly and covertly all the way to his current position, he was totally unable to see through what she was thinking. Right from the start he had sincerely cooperated with Yiqing Luo. Would the ending be different? This young lady, perhaps she really had the ability to destroy the dark forces. Only there were no. Yiqing Luo would not give him a chance to regret. She smiled as she twisted open the white jade bottle's cap. The white medicinal powder was sprinkled onto Pharaoh He's body. When the medicinal powder came into contact with Pharaoh He's body, Pharaoh He only felt that his entire body was filled with the same kind of piercing pain earlier. Densely it attacked his entire body. He howled in pain. His body twisted into an extremely strange arc on the ground. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she flicked her finger and the white jade bottle landed on the ground. She calmly raised her eyes and looked towards the altar. Losing the illumination of the soul lamp, the entire dark sacred region only had one hanging luminous pearl. The light was extremely weak. As the surrounding sinister cold wind blew, with a thick stench of blood, it filled the air. It made the atmosphere of the dark sacred region even more sinister. A gust of chilly wind blew past in waves. Yiqing Luo remained unmoved. Instead it passed by the extremely twisted and stiff corpse on the ground due to the pain, and headed straight towards the direction of the silk cloth which was covered with a thin layer of frost for thousands of years. The air was filled with the stench of blood once again. King of Darkness's hoarse roar rang beside her ears. "Vessel, stop. Stop right there for this king." A surge of energy came from all directions. It enveloped Yiqing Luo's body in that surge of energy. A cold and gloomy aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows crease slightly. "Don't touch me." These three peaceful words came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Beneath her feet, the profound qi fluctuated and rolled up streams of energy. Countless streams of air revolved around the sole of her feet, entangling together. Bang! The force from the King of Darkness collided with the airflow around Yiqing Luo's feet. The air in the entire Darkness Saint realm suddenly shook violently. At the same time, in Yiqing Luo's hand, a soul lamp which had already been extinguished appeared. When the King of Darkness saw the soul lamp in her hand, his voice became even more irritated. "Vessel, if you dare to do this, this king will make you regret it. I'll make you regret it." His voice was already in a hysterical state. The restlessness of the King of Darkness caused the cold in the air to turn into ice. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? This vessel had repeatedly sabotaged his awakening plan and his plan to remove the seal on the Saint realm. Now he wanted to completely destroy him. How could he tolerate this? He was the King of Darkness, the king of all living things in the world. Between heaven and earth, all living things had to respect him as the king. However, the commotion in the air was unable to disturb Yiqing Luo's emotions. Her expression was calm as she threw the soul lamp in her hand towards the thin layer of frost. An intense explosion was heard. Chapter 1682. "Ah, slut, slut." Furious roars filled the entire dark sacred region. The dark sacred region was in a state of turbulence. The surrounding air seemed to have been frozen by the profound yin qi at this moment. In the air, streams of profound yin qi continued to revolve and spread in all directions. Yiqing Luo's breathing started to become laborious. The King of Darkness was enraged. Completely enraged. Yiqing Luo slowed down her breathing as she squinted her eyes as she gazed at the profound yin qi which was revolving around her. On the contrary, she revealed as expected, smile. The angrier the King of Darkness was, the more furious he got. Which meant that her action of breaking the 10,000 years thin frost was a huge blow to the King of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto the 10,000 years thin frost which was filled with tiny cracks. She took a step forward. Another spirit lamp was thrown out from her hand. Just a light toss. That palm-sized spirit lamp landed right in the middle of the thin frost. A gotcha sound was heard. The 10,000 years thin frost suddenly broke apart. The deep pit which occupied 2/3 of the dark sacred region was completely presented in front of Yiqing Luo. That was a blood pool. A blood pool which emitted a thick stench of blood. What was even more horrifying was that huge blood pool was soaked with corpses. On top of each corpse floated a layer of fist-sized transparent air bubble. At the moment when the 10,000 years thin frost broke apart, those transparent air bubbles immediately left the corpses' heads as they swarmed out. Transparent air bubbles in a split second enveloped the entire roof of the dark sacred region. One layer after another. It was densely packed and just one look at it made one's hair stand on end. There were at least tens of thousands of transparent air bubbles. And at the same time when the air bubbles left the corpses in the blood pool suddenly melted into a pool of blood. In just a short moment the corpses in the blood pool had already disappeared. And the blood in the blood pool had obviously spread upwards. This scene made even Yiqing Luo's scalp go numb. She raised her head and looked at the layers of densely packed transparent air bubbles which were suspended above the roof as she was filled with puzzlement. Those are the souls of those profounders. Old Man Song voiced out in time to dispel Yiqing Luo's doubts. So, are those transparent bubbles souls? These souls should be the sacrifices that the dark faction prepared for the King of Darkness. Use dark spells to extract the souls of the boys and girls, then seal their bodies and souls in the blood pool with 10,000-year frost. You used your soul lamp to shatter the 10,000-year thin frost, and the souls of these profound practitioners escaped. As Yiqing Luo listened, the coldness in her eyes grew increasingly stern. The underworld organization was truly ruthless. Who would have thought that they would use such a method to store the offerings for the King of Darkness? It was too cruel. These souls. They were all sacrifices for the King of Darkness, a source of food. It was no wonder that the King of Darkness was so furious when she destroyed the 10,000-year-old thin frost. She wanted to destroy the hope of the King of Darkness awakening. He wanted to destroy the King of Darkness's hopes of breaking the seal. She wanted to seal the King of Darkness completely. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as her figure suddenly swayed. She was already standing at the entrance of the dark sacred region's palace. She recalled the method that Pharaoh he used to open the palace door. Stop. You stop right now. Following the hysteria of the King of Darkness, the profound yin qi in the huge palace caused the surrounding air to turn even colder. Chapter 1683. The violent profound yin qi seemed to have the power to swallow the heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo's body was unavoidably affected by the profound yin qi. Her expression didn't fluctuate at all. However, astonishment surged up from the bottom of his heart. The King of Darkness was very powerful, much more powerful than the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo was very clear about this. It was rumored that 10,000 years ago, the upper realm's power was used to seal the King of Darkness in the dark sacred region. That was enough to show how powerful the King of Darkness was. Even now, he who was sealed in the dark sacred region. The power that was released was not even a 10,000th of what he had at his peak. But it was this 10,000th. Yiqing Luo felt an extremely strong pressure, covering the sky and covering the earth. The violent profound yin qi kept attacking her. Yiqing Luo's robe kept fluttering. A strong airflow lingered around Yiqing Luo's body, forming into a ball shape. In her mind, Old Man Song's panicked voice rang, "Not good, lass. The King of Darkness is enraged. Quickly use teleportation to leave this place." At this moment, Old Man Song couldn't be bothered anymore. As long as Yiqing Luo could survive. Even if the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet was known by others. It didn't matter. He absolutely could not let anything happen to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled when she heard that. She didn't expect Old Man Song to even mention teleportation. From this, one could see how dangerous the King of Darkness's furious attack was. But she couldn't use teleportation. She couldn't escape just like that. The King of Darkness's attack seemed to be aimed at her. But in actual fact, the King of Darkness's bigger target was those 10,000 transparent soul bubbles floating above the roof. Old Man Song had explained it to her before. These souls had all been sealed into bubbles using dark spells. Once these transparent bubbles left the dark sacred region and floated towards the place where the souls were controlled. By then the upper realm would discover the dark spells on these souls. And once the number of these souls increased, the people from the upper realm would definitely pay attention to this matter. The dark forces were preparing to rise again and take action against the Nirvana realm. Once the news spread to the upper realm would definitely maintain the balance and lend a helping hand. She wanted to release these souls from the darkness sanctum. The King of Darkness would do everything in his power to stop him. She escaped. It wasn't just the secret of teleportation that the King of Darkness would know. These souls would also be destroyed by the King of Darkness. These souls were the evidence of the evil deeds of the underworld organization. Yiqing Luo absolutely would not allow the King of Darkness to destroy this evidence. Her charming eyes were covered with a thin layer of coldness. Yiqing Luo concentrated. The power of her profound jade heart rose to the extreme. Then the powerful profound qi poured down like a rainbow. The glowing flame fan in his hand also unfurled, turning into a devilish red glow. Bang! The palace gate of the darkness sanctuary was split open by the red light. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's body, which was encircled by the profound yin qi, suddenly exploded. Girl Luo. Old Song's voice was hoarse as he angrily roared from within the azure dew bracelet. His heart was beating rapidly, unable to restrain itself. That girl he actually chose to take on the King of Darkness attack just to release those souls? What on earth was she doing? Old Man Song wanted to use his vision to investigate the situation outside. But no matter how he looked, it was all white in front of him. Chapter 1684. The air currents from the explosion continued to revolve, intertwining with each other. At this instance, the densely packed soul bubbles above the eaves of the palace seemed to be attracted by something as they surged towards the main door. One by one the bubbles rushed out of the palace, flying towards the sky. These souls had no life. The reverse barrier to these souls had no effect at all. Those bubbles, one by one, surged towards the sky, disappearing outside the barrier. Damn it! Stop! Stop! King of Darkness was enraged. The entire dark sacred region was in an uproar. What a pity! A voice that seemed to be filled with helplessness and pity rang out in a quiet and serene voice. There was a hint of a smile in her clear and sweet voice. Can't do as you wish, these souls can't stop. That voice continued. You're not dead. King of Darkness roared agitatedly, filled with disbelief. This was Yiqing Luo's voice. How could she not be dead? Even though the current him wasn't at his peak. With his current power, killing Yiqing Luo was not a problem at all. How could Yiqing Luo still be alive under his attack, which had exhausted all his remaining energy? The dark sacred region's uproar gradually calmed down. The airflow that lingered around them also gradually subsided. That explosive air currents slowly dispersed, revealing a slender figure. The young lady's green and white academy uniform was fluttering, obviously without any adornment. But looking at it now, it seemed as though it was plated with a layer of lustrous velvet. Black hair danced along with the air currents. Her slender figure stood proudly. The flame around her made her seem so noble, making one unable to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Wasn't this Yiqing Luo? She indeed didn't die. Not only did she not die. Furthermore, her entire person seemed to have a metamorphosis, as though she had been reborn. In the seal, King of Darkness's mental power had been fixed on Yiqing Luo. This was not the metamorphosis of advancement. Yiqing Luo's profound grade was still stable at Sky Profound First Grade Realm. That was... King of Darkness's mental power suddenly shook. Yiqing Luo's divine phoenix profound jade heart, that smear of profound yin qi which was sealed with the dark incantation, was completely erased. How was this possible? How could Yiqing Luo possibly eliminate that trace of profound yin qi? While the King of Darkness was in disbelief, he felt a backlash attack his mind power. The King of Darkness screamed in agony. Then there was no sound. Ya little girl. In his divine sense, Old Man Song swallowed his saliva and opened his mouth in a daze. Yiqing Luo's exquisite and beautiful face was filled with an eerie chill. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the Saint Realm array formation on the altar. Her thin eyebrows slightly furrowed. What was going on? She could clearly feel the King of Darkness's gaze sizing her up. But in the next instant, suddenly the connection between the eyes disappeared. Even the aura of the mysterious Xianxia had disappeared. Could it be that the King of Darkness had exhausted all of his strength and his consciousness was sealed once more? Lass, what happened just now? How did you withstand the King of Darkness attack? Why wasn't I able to see what was happening outside just now? Filled with questions, Old Man Song was so anxious that he almost wanted to stomp his feet. Just now. Yiqing Luo hesitated for a moment as she shook her head in a daze. Everything that had just happened in that instant. Chapter 1685. The moment the profound Xianxia condensed into a sphere, it exploded. She was preparing to use her teleportation. Even if she was seriously injured, she could at least preserve her life. But she didn't have time to recite the incantation. Suddenly, a scorching hot feeling wrapped around her heart. Immediately, she felt that her body was being burned by a raging fire. She didn't even have the time to pay attention to what was happening. When she opened her eyes, she was already standing safely in the air. Then came the King of Darkness's hysterical roar, ringing in her ears. Scorching hot feeling? Old Man Song murmured softly. Yiqing Luo heard the seriousness in his tone. You know the reason? Old Man Song was silent for a moment, deliberating for a while, then slowly opened his mouth. To you, this should be considered a good thing, but also a bad thing. Yiqing Luo was stunned. You also know this profound heart jade of yours is called the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Old Man Song let out a long sigh. I originally didn't want to tell you the secret of this profound heart jade so quickly, but man proposes, God disposes, you still know about the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Your current strength is unable to enter the upper realm. This profound heart jade of yours is unable to display its full potential. Yiqing Luo herself was very clear on this point. Previously she had asked Old Man Song, what were the profound grades above the sky mystic supremacy? Old Man Song only explained a little, then let her concentrate on cultivating, to reach the sky mystic stage first. It was because, with her current strength, even if she knew those things that exceeded her current strength, to her it was of no use. She might as well not know anything. Then rely on her own hard work to find out everything she wanted to know. In that critical moment just now, this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade of yours saved you. Old Man Song sighed again. I activated the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Yiqing Luo was surprised. Then, what did you mean when you said it's a good thing but also a bad thing? You can activate the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. It proves that your current realm has increased. Your innate talent has also increased. This will be of great help to your future profound chi cultivation. This was obviously a great benefit. However, Old Man Song's tone was extremely solemn. However, with your current strength, you may be considered as one of the best in the Nirvana realm, but compared to the upper realm, you are just an ant that can be trampled upon. You've also heard from Pharaoh that the dark forces are not the only ones coveting your profound heart jade. Even the people of the God realm are coveting the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If the news that the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is in the Nirvana realm spreads to the upper realm, I'm afraid you'll be in danger. Yiqing Luo slowly lowered her eyelids. Her slender hand pressed against her heart. The Profound Heart Jade emitted a gentle profound energy, warming the center of her palm. Why did the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade choose me? She murmured softly. She had countless questions in her mind. The azure dew bracelet was her family's heirloom. This other world also had an azure water divine artifact. Not only that, but her profound heart jade was the key and radar to find the azure water divine artifact. The vast water divine artifact also had an inexplicable connection with her. All of these questions superimposed on each other. It made Yiqing Luo's heart skip a beat, then immediately beat violently. He heard the sound of her complicated feelings. Old Man Song was silent for a long time. Chapter 1686. Do you want to know? Old Man Song's voice reverberated in her mind. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. This hesitation only lasted for a few short breaths. The luster in her eyes had already regained its calmness. Don't want to. She didn't use her consciousness to say these two words. She moved her mouth and spat out these two words clearly. She understood Old Man Song's concerns. before she had the ability to contend with the people from the upper realm. Even if she knew it would be of no use to her. On the contrary, it would affect her state of mind. It would affect the progress of her cultivation. She wanted to know those things. When she had enough ability, she would investigate everything clearly one by one. Hearing Yiqing Luo's reply, the old man in the azure dew bracelet slowly heaved a sigh of relief. That wrinkled face was filled with gratification. This lass. She was too sensible. It was no wonder that she was chosen by the azure dew bracelet. But lass, this time you sent so many soul bubbles to the soul control center, it will definitely attract the attention of the upper realm. If the people from the upper realm pursue it to the lower realm. Old man Song's tone revealed some worries. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she looked outside the palace door at the dark and treacherous atmosphere. Old man Song, with you around, I believe that hiding the presence of the divine phoenix profound heart jade and azure dew bracelet is not a problem. Old man Song remained silent for a while. Lass, you're really meticulous, nothing can escape your eyes. The dark forces had racked their brains to search for a complete set of azure dew divine weapon. The azure dew divine weapon was just a divine weapon made from the leftover dregs of the azure dew bracelet. But the dark forces were so obsessed with the azure dew divine weapon. What more, the azure dew bracelet? In the azure dew bracelet there was not only the dragon god cauldron, the purgatory pagoda, there were all kinds of heaven-defying secret technique rewards. And old man Song kept reminding her not to use the secret technique rewards from the purgatory pagoda in front of others. This further indicated the mystery of the azure dew bracelet. The azure dew bracelet should be an even more heaven-defying existence than her divine phoenix profound heart jade. But all along, other than Zhou Xian, no one had discovered the existence of the azure dew bracelet. Even the King of Darkness couldn't sense the azure dew bracelet. It could be seen that the aura of the azure dew bracelet was definitely concealed by old man Song using a special method. This profound heart jade of hers should also be. For the past 15 years, she had always been called trash. He had a powerful profound jade heart, but he was trash that couldn't cultivate. All of this was to hide that her profound heart jade was the divine phoenix profound heart jade. If he had shown great talent since he was young, he became the first unparalleled genius in the nirvana realm. The secret of her profound heart jade might not be able to be kept for long. Especially since she was the young lord of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sections. This identity was already eye-catching enough. Not to mention, under the circumstances of this identity, he was also extremely talented in cultivation. She had completely exposed the fact that the divine phoenix profound heart jade was in her possession. However, what made Yiqing Luo curious was, in the past 15 years, who was it that had turned her into a wastrel who was unable to cultivate? Who was it that wanted to help her hide the whereabouts of the divine phoenix profound heart jade? Looking at the entire Three Springs sect, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of anyone who would do such a thing. Just as Yiqing Luo was deep in thought, a slender figure suddenly appeared from somewhere in the shadows. Chapter 1687. The cold profound yin qi corroded Yiqing Luo's entire body. Lass, be careful behind you. Old man Song's anxious voice suddenly rang. Almost instinctively Yiqing Luo's feet moved. Her agile footwork made her figure like an afterimage. But a moment later she had already moved to the other side. Bam! An explosion sound was heard. The ground where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier suddenly exploded into a huge deep pit. The surrounding profound yin qi set off gusts of wild wind. Yiqing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted as she looked vigilantly at the direction where the qi came from and shouted in a deep voice, "Who's there?" There was actually someone else here? She actually didn't sense it at all. This was the dark sacred region and only people of the level of the holy law and the pharaoh could enter this place. Could it be? Someone had sensed that something had happened in the dark sacred region and rushed over? The profound yin qi which shrouded the area gradually faded. Yiqing Luo could clearly see that under the profound yin qi was a tall and slender man. The man had a head of silver hair and was dressed in a black robe. His exquisite face exuded a sinister and cold aura. Traces of black yin qi were like flowing black electric currents as it wrapped around his entire body. His body was emitting a biting cold evil qi. She only met his gaze for a moment. Yiqing Luo instantly felt an extremely strong cold current rushing from her feet straight up to her head. That was a kind of bone-piercing cold. This man. was very dangerous. Compared to those holy law and pharaoh whom she had met, he was several hundred times more dangerous. This man. Who is he? Damn vessel, how dare you destroy this king's blood-soul curse? This king wants to devour you. That evil and cold man's eyes were filled with a dense profound yin qi. The minute he opened his mouth, Yiqing Luo's expression could no longer maintain her original composure. What did he say? This king? He is King of Darkness? No. Impossible. The King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. How could he possibly reveal his physical body? The man's lips twitched sinisterly as the profound yin qi clouded his expression. But Yiqing Luo knew that he was sneering. He was ridiculing her fear towards him. He was also laughing at her overconfident vigilance. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart surge with thick anger and unwillingness. Little girl, don't let his mysterious yin qi affect your mind. Looking at Yiqing Luo's expression, which surfaced some anger, Old Man Song hurriedly opened his mouth and called out to Yiqing Luo. Although the wisp of profound yin qi sealed within your profound jade heart was already automatically purified when I was protecting you just now, it's still not enough. However, don't underestimate the power of this mysterious yin qi. The profound yin qi of the dark forces was obviously different from the one he had sensed in the Nirvana realm. In Nirvana realm, especially those cultivators who had made a soul exchange, making use of profound yin qi to deal with Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could easily dispel those profound yin qi and wasn't affected by it at all. But in the dark forces, the mystical yin qi was the purest. Especially, the black yin qi on the man in front of him was even stronger than the black yin qi he had sensed from the wolf Saint Law. No matter how firm Yiqing Luo's willpower was, their minds were affected by the dense mysterious yin qi. Chapter 1688. Old Man Song remained silent and didn't give a reply. He had no way to differentiate whether the man in front of him was the King of Darkness or not. He had the same question as Yiqing Luo. From the man's voice and words, as well as the sharp aura that was released from his body, this indeed looked like the King of Darkness. But the King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. The source of his power, the source of his consciousness, those blood pool souls had all been released by Yiqing Luo. The King of Darkness' remaining power would be stripped away. Not to mention the removal of the seal. Most importantly, Old Man Song was the clearest about the King of Darkness' power. If the man in front of him was the King of Darkness, there was no way that Yiqing Luo could evade that attack of his earlier. Very strange, very surprised. Looking at Yiqing Luo's vigilant and fearful expression, the man smiled evilly. He squinted his eyes. The profound yin qi in his eyes lingered in his eyes. Too bad, you can only be surprised in hell. The soaring profound yin qi continued to be released. That ruthless gaze was incomparably terrifying. Yiqing Luo's reaction was extremely fast. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up and a bewitching red glow cut through the layers of profound yin qi. As though in the air streams of air waves were produced. Two bursts of energy collided in mid-air. The dense energy suddenly enveloped the entire dark sacred region's palace. The blood in the blood pool also splattered out in this intense hurricane. The ground was stained with a large patch of blood. The man's lips curled up sinisterly as the profound yin qi in his eyes grew thicker. Struggle on your deathbed. This king shall satisfy you. His words had just ended when he waved his sleeves. Following the encirclement of the profound yin qi, a palm wind mixed with the dense profound yin qi struck towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Such a strong aura. Such dense profound yin qi. This man was indeed ruthless. Each strike was fatal. Those two irresistible forces were colliding with each other. Suddenly, the profound yin qi's palm wind covered the sky and earth as it pressured downwards. The glower flame fan's red glow was instantly covered by the profound yin qi. Immediately following that, it surged towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as the profound qi within her body continued to expand. She gripped the devouring flame fan tightly, her profound qi swirling around the devouring flame fan, emitting an extremely dazzling red light. Then she flipped her wrist. The gourd flame fan raised two red flying dragons. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws to fight against the mysterious yin qi. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly made a turn. Boom boom boom. Bang. With a few loud noises. The two huge red dragons were mercilessly devoured by the dense mysterious Yin Qi. Shortly after, the mysterious Yin Qi smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The powerful aura caused the surrounding air to be tainted with black Yin Qi. Yiqing Luo exerted all her energy and barely managed to maintain her balance, not to be sent flying by that powerful palm qi. That man, it was too powerful. When the wind from his palm burst out, Yiqing Luo had never thought of going head-to-head with him. Those two flying dragons were condensed from the combination of profound qi and the glower flame fan's energy. It was just to fight for a chance for herself to avoid that palm wind. He was not an idiot. Naturally she could tell. The man's palm contained a dense energy. If this palm really landed on her body, she would definitely die. She would probably lose her life. Yiqing Luo steadied herself, and the blood from the blood pool on the ground had soaked her feet. Chapter 1689. The man in front of her was cold and dignified. A pair of eyes that were filled with profound Yin Qi revealed an evil smile. Yes, this king is the king of darkness, the king who rules over all living things. His smile was obviously filled with joy. But a sinister aura seeped out from his bones. Vessel, you have no way to resist, obediently be devoured by this king. The king of darkness's eyes suddenly turned cold as his murderous intent was revealed. Yiqing Luo took half a step back as her heart tightened. Obediently obey? These words didn't exist in her dictionary. To make her obey the king of darkness, to become his food. She only wanted to be afraid of the king of darkness. Dream on. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed as she pretended to laugh indifferently. You who have been sealed, even if you awaken, it will only be for a short period of time. Do you think I will be afraid of you? Devouring you is enough. The king of darkness's gloomy eyes were filled with murderous intent. When his words fell, his face instantly turned steely green. Apparently, he realized that he had been tricked by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo closed the glower flame fan and placed it on her pink lips as she laughed lightly. Indeed, after being sealed for 10,000 years, your brain has not been used for so long that it has become rusty. The contempt and ridicule in her eyes was obvious. As long as she was sure that the king of darkness's physical body was not because of the removal of the seal, she could rest assured. Moreover, she could confirm that the king of darkness's physical body had a time limit. As long as she could hang on for this period of time, she would exhaust all of the king of darkness's energy. The king of darkness would definitely fall into a deep slumber because of the sacred region's seal. I know. Suddenly, old man Song's voice rang in her mind. I know the reason why the king of darkness's physical body appeared. Yiqing Luo stared at the king of darkness alertly in case he suddenly made a move. She was distracted as she listened to old man Song's words. The king of darkness wants to remove the sacred region's seal and descend once again to fulfill his ambition from 10,000 years ago. In order to break the seal, he has already spent a great deal of effort. Recently, the dark forces have been making a lot of movements. Moreover, they are taking the risk of being discovered by the various factions in the Nirvana realm to set up a soul assimilation array in the flame layer to plunder the souls of the students of the various academies. Can be seen that the king of darkness has already reached the final stage of breaking the seal. Perhaps in the next few years, the seal of the sanctuary will be completely undone. Hearing old man Song's analysis, Yiqing Luo nodded her head solemnly. That was her guess as well. When the dark forces took action, Yiqing Luo had this feeling. But, girl, you destroyed the soul assimilating array. Old man Song's voice was filled with deep worry. He even let go of the blood soul curse that he had gathered for at least 100 years. He completely destroyed all of his opportunities to break the seal. He also wasted 10,000 years of hard work in one day. The king of darkness was a very ambitious person. His ambition led to him being suppressed by the people of the upper realm and sealed in the dark holy region 10,000 years ago. However, a seal might not be able to seal a person's ambition. The king of darkness's ambition was still stirring. After spending 10,000 years, he tried all ways and means to break the sacred region's seal. Just a few more steps. But it was completely destroyed by Yiqing Luo. Under the rage of the king of darkness, his mental energy broke through the seal and revealed his physical body, intending to skin the person who destroyed his hard work alive. The soul assimilating array was destroyed. He could use Yiqing Luo's divine phoenix profound heart jade to replace it. But The Blood Soul Curse's blood pool was destroyed. Chapter 1690. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her charming eyes fixed on the King of Darkness as she couldn't help but shiver. No wonder the King of Darkness didn't care about the life and death of a vessel like her. He wanted to tear her into pieces. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was completely enraged and he only wanted to kill her. Is there any way to deal with him? The other party was the King of Darkness. The King of Darkness that could only be sealed by the upper realm. She was a profound practitioner of the profound sky continent. In the eyes of the King of Darkness, it was nothing. Old Man Song finally understood the reason why the King of Darkness had revealed his true body. He should know how to deal with the King of Darkness, right? However, very quickly Old Man Song directly extinguished Yiqing Luo's hope. Let's not talk about now. I'm just a spirit body guardian and I can't fight the King of Darkness. Even before I became a guardian, I wouldn't be a match for the King of Darkness. Old Man Song solemnly said, but girl, you just got a sentence out of him, maybe there's still a chance. Get information out of him? This meant that the King of Darkness could only stay awake for a short period of time. As long as they could avoid the King of Darkness attacks and hold on until the King of Darkness time was up. If he seized the opportunity, he might be able to make a move on the King of Darkness. Thinking of this, a cold glint flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes. She is not a person who follows the rules. He was also a person who would seize every opportunity. Even if there was no chance, she would create one. The King of Darkness wanted to kill her. How could she not want to kill the King of Darkness? However, the King of Darkness was simply too powerful. Just 2 moves later, Yiqing Luo had already realized it. With her strength, it was likely that she wouldn't even be able to exchange a single blow with the King of Darkness. Vessel, just based on you? Even if you know that I don't have enough time, do you have the ability to delay me? King of Darkness laughed coldly, his tone was filled with disdain towards Yiqing Luo. This king will devour you completely so that you will never be able to rise again. With a roar, the King of Darkness leaped into the air. His figure had already turned into a black afterimage. What came in front of him was a shockingly powerful aura, carrying with it a dense mysterious yin qi. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly changed. That aura, powerful and arrogant. She didn't even have the chance to dodge the oppressive attack. Lass, don't be in such a hurry to be shocked. The current King of Darkness cannot be compared to when he was at his peak. His true strength is still sealed by the Saint Region seal. The power he is releasing now is merely the tip of the iceberg. Old Man Song could also clearly feel that terrifying aura. His heart was filled with worry. Lass, if it's true, just use teleportation and the thunderclap incantation. As long as you can last until the King of Darkness awakens, he will be sealed again. If he wants to regain consciousness, I'm afraid it will take a few hundred years. That was to say, as long as she was confident that she could use these 2 secret techniques to evade the King of Darkness, she would be able to do so. The King of Darkness was sealed once more. She didn't have to worry about the King of Darkness knowing that she had the Azure Dew bracelet. A few hundred years later. Not to mention whether or not she was still alive. Even if she really was alive at that time, she would already have enough power to protect the Azure Dew bracelet. However, unless it was a last resort, Yiqing Luo still didn't want to use these 2 Azure Water secret arts. Give up resisting, give up struggling? Then, now obediently let this king devour you. Chapter 1691. After King of Darkness finished his words, he charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. His speed was extremely fast. Just moments later, he was already close to Yiqing Luo's face. As compared to the burst of qi which he released earlier, it was even faster. Yiqing Luo felt her face turning slightly cold. A cold and gloomy intent seemed to freeze her face. When the King of Darkness got close, Lin Fan's eyes widened. He suddenly raised his palm and dispersed the wave of qi that he had released with a single palm strike. That powerful aura spread across the sky of the dark sacred region. A palace was in a state of turbulence. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled slightly as her charming eyes stared at that evil cold face which was just inches away from her. This King of Darkness. What on earth was he trying to do? That terrifying and overbearing qi wave was from him attacking her, trying to devour her. Why did she disperse that qi wave on her own? Yiqing Luo didn't feel that King of Darkness suddenly had a conscience and didn't want to kill her anymore. As though he saw the vigilance and suspicion in Yiqing Luo's eyes. King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as he revealed a smile. You're right, I suddenly don't want you to. His voice paused. Following that exquisite face was filled with a cold, murderous aura. He laughed coldly, treacherous and cold. Die so quickly. The last sentence was extremely cold. Yiqing Luo was unable to control the fear and agitation in her heart. Her petite body shrunk slightly as her eyes flashed with a complicated glow. The way to devour you is not only to kill you. King of Darkness looked at Yiqing Luo's face, which was gradually turning green in satisfaction. His smile turned even colder. Yiqing Luo had a bad premonition. As expected, King of Darkness's fingers suddenly grabbed Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. That ice-cold touch was like ice. Look carefully, this face of yours does suit this king's taste. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with a lustful expression. This face was indeed a stunner. Furthermore, killing this vessel wasn't enough to vent the anger in his heart. He wanted to destroy this vessel. Let this vessel taste despair. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with profound yin qi, and the vicious look in his eyes matched the lustful expression. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. A look of surprise flashed across her eyes. That evil and cold face that was just inches away from him, if he moved a little closer, their lips would touch. His breath hit the skin of her face. Cold. It was like the cold air of an icehouse. It was bone-chilling, unbearably cold. Most importantly, Yiqing Luo was extremely disgusted by his presence. The meaning behind the King of Darkness's words and the intense gaze in his eyes made her feel nauseous. She had never expected this. The King of Darkness actually used such a method to disgust her. Perhaps it was the disgust in Yiqing Luo's eyes that made the interest in the King of Darkness's eyes, and that colorful gaze became even more intense. His wrist suddenly slid down. He directly locked onto Yiqing Luo's waist, pressing Yiqing Luo's soft body onto his sturdy chest. Even though they were separated by clothes, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the increasingly cold chill piercing into her skin. What are you trying to do? Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she flicked her wrist and attacked the King of Darkness. He actually used such a method. Was he trying to humiliate her? She had to admit that this move by the King of Darkness was indeed the move that stirred up her emotions. The King of Darkness was fighting against her. Even if she wasn't able to defeat the King of Darkness, she would give it her all. But Chapter 1692. King of Darkness's gaze was filled with an indescribable lust. This king has been sealed for 10,000 years and has never touched a woman. It just so happens that you are going to die by this king's hands. Why don't you let this king teach you the greatest joy of being a woman before you die? He abruptly tightened the grip on his arm. Yiqing Luo's body had no way to struggle free. Her entire body fell onto King of Darkness's body. The next moment, King of Darkness's hand slid onto Yiqing Luo's body. He actually started to tug on Yiqing Luo's belt. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale as she flipped her palm and swiftly stopped King of Darkness's actions. Following that, she quickly released her profound qi. Twin dragons emerged from the sea. Yiqing Luo cried out as she gripped her glower flame fan tightly and released the profound skill of the glower flame fan. Two flying fire dragons soared into the sky. Tyrannical profound qi undulated as the two flying fire dragons circled around. King of Darkness's heart was filled with lust. He had never expected that Yiqing Luo still had the ability to resist at this moment. Instantly she was engulfed by the two fire dragons. Yiqing Luo's body, with the help of the flying fire dragons, swiftly escaped from King of Darkness's embrace. He took a few steps back. Her fingers swiftly fastened the belt on her body. Her pair of clear and charming eyes were already tainted with a thin layer of coldness. At the same time, King of Darkness reacted at the instance when he was engulfed by the fire dragons. But he waved his sleeves lightly. The vast profound yin qi dissipated the two fire dragons which were entangled in the sky. King of Darkness's gaze followed Yiqing Luo's direction. There was no longer any lust in his eyes. Instead it was a cold and sinister sneer. Looks like this king has found your weakness. He laughed softly as his evil face was filled with a chilly intent. He licked his dry lips, and the possessive desire in his eyes made him look even more treacherous. This king happens to fall for this trick of yours. Really? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her icy cold eyes curved upwards. She tightened her grip on the glowing flame fan and scoffed. Unfortunately, I find you disgusting. The King of Darkness's eyes darkened, and her exquisite face was covered by a layer of black yin qi. He sneered as his entire body abruptly charged downwards and a burst of strong qi once again neared Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo shifted her feet. A devilish mystic light spread out from his fingertips. She would never make the same mistake again. She would never give the King of Darkness the chance to do so. A flowing red light flashed in his eyes. The profound energy released from her entire body gradually rose. In just a moment, a transparent protective shield had formed around her body. Just as the terrifying glint which carried the profound yin qi neared Yiqing Luo. Boom! Yiqing Luo's defensive shield exploded with a loud bang. Coincidentally, the King of Darkness's figure was right next to Yiqing Luo. His face was blasted by the explosion of the protective shield. At the same time, Yiqing Luo had already executed her footwork and swiftly moved out of the explosion radius. Yiqing Luo's profound energy was not able to cause much harm to the King of Darkness. Even if the King of Darkness was blasted away, at most it would only cause some superficial injuries to the King of Darkness. For example now. After the thousands of strands of demonic red light dissipated, the King of Darkness's elegant black hair had been blown into curls. His black robe had several holes in it. Chapter 1693. King of Darkness was also stunned by the explosion. He stood there in a daze as he lowered his head to look at his burnt clothes. The expression on the man's face kept changing. After some time, King of Darkness's hands trembled as he touched his curly black hair. His eyes were filled with a storm. Damned vessel. You actually dared to scheme against me. A hoarse growl came out from King of Darkness's mouth. The current him didn't have any feelings for Yiqing Luo at all. He only wanted to kill Yiqing Luo. Kill Yiqing Luo. Hearing King of Darkness's raging voice, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Being stared at by those disgusting things that were neither human nor ghost. She only felt disgusted. Even though he only used that gaze to look at her. She felt extremely disgusted. Not to mention the fact that she was being groped by him wanting to grope her body. If it wasn't for the fact that she knew that King of Darkness's current body wasn't his original body, she definitely wanted to poison him. To poison this disgusting species who coveted her beauty. To make him unable to have sex. Blowing him into curly hair was already considered as her mercy. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed with a cold glint as she snorted. Do you think I am someone you can touch? I'm telling you, if you dare to touch me once, I will blow you up once. Why don't you try and see if you can kill me first, or if I can blow up all the hair on your body into big curly hairs. Good job. King of Darkness's furious eyes swept past Yiqing Luo. A profound yin qi whirlpool instantly shot out from his body. That whirlpool swiftly twisted and turned, as though it was going to swallow the heaven and earth. That horrifying qi condensed into a whirlpool. It showed the fury in King of Darkness's heart. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. That power was simply too strong. It was so strong that she felt a chill down her spine. In the end, it was because her ability wasn't strong enough. She thought that she had advanced to the sky profound stage. She had enough ability to protect those brothers whom she cared about. But in the end, she still let her own brothers take the risk. In front of the stronger King of Darkness, she felt fear. He was strong enough. He wouldn't be in such a passive position. Yiqing Luo's eyes overflowed with a complicated glint. Her slender fingers curled up one by one. Her entire body was tense, and her expression was solemn as she stared at the King of Darkness. In his mind, he constantly analyzed the current situation of the battle, and in his mind he had already constructed many ways to escape unscathed. I say, lass, using your beauty to stall for time just now was the best way to do it, and it wouldn't draw blood. Why didn't you grasp the opportunity? Old man Song sighed helplessly when he saw her tense and worried expression. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. I can't accept any man other than Xian touching me with that kind of feelings. No one but Xian. Honey trap. She did have the capital to do so. Moreover, he had trained this skill for a long time in the hands of the old men of the Yi clan. But she had never bothered to use a honey trap. There was no need to use a honey trap. But now she already had Xian. It was even more impossible for her to seduce a man other than Xian. She would rather use a battle with the King of Darkness to stall for time. She didn't want the King of Darkness to touch her body. Old Man Song remained silent. He didn't speak again. Chapter 1694. Vessel, since you insist on choosing a painful path to death, then I will definitely satisfy you. King of Darkness laughed sinisterly. Just as he finished his words, the whirlpool around him started to spin rapidly. Yiqing Luo felt her chest tightening. Her body was pushed into midair by something. Following that, her body flew backwards. He smashed into the wall beside him. She gave a dull moan as her body fell onto the ground. Blood flowed out from the corner of her lips. Her brows were tightly knitted as she panted in pain. She felt as if her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been shattered. What kind of horrifying power was that? Yiqing Luo was still lying on the ground. She couldn't understand what King of Darkness had done to actually send her flying in such a short period of time. She thought that with the group of old men in her past life, learning various Yi family's footwork, her speed in the Nirvana realm was absolutely heaven-defying. But she couldn't see through King of Darkness's speed at all. How strong was he exactly? Looking at Yiqing Luo lying on the ground. Her green and white uniform was stained with fresh blood. She didn't know if this fresh blood was from the expanding blood pool or Yiqing Luo's blood. King of Darkness's malicious eyes were extremely cold and sinister. He looked at Yiqing Luo coldly as his lips curled up in ridicule. That's it? This king hasn't warmed up enough, don't you die now. He took a step forward and walked to Yiqing Luo's side as he looked down at her from above. Seeing that she had no resistance at all, gritting her teeth silently, King of Darkness laughed delightfully. Don't die too early before this king has enjoyed himself to his heart's content. Saying that, he flipped his sleeves again. A burst of dense, profound energy continued to increase in strength. Yiqing Luo only felt her body being squeezed by a burst of energy as she was forcefully pushed down onto the ground. She heard a kacha sound. The ground beneath him had already been shattered by this powerful force. Yiqing Luo could clearly hear the sound of her bones breaking. He was really ruthless. What a terrifying force. Yiqing Luo endured the intense pain. She didn't make a single sound. Her pair of charming eyes exuded an extremely piercingly cold chill. That's right. It's this gaze. It's this gaze that makes this king feel your despair and hatred. The King of Darkness sneered. His eyes, which were filled with hostility, were filled with a joyful smile. 2 consecutive attacks. Yiqing Luo didn't even have the chance to react. His body had already suffered serious internal injuries. The King of Darkness didn't want to play her to death. His attacks were extremely heavy, aiming for the vitals without any mercy. However, he managed to avoid taking her vital parts. Did he want to see her lying on the ground in despair, unable to move, waiting for death? Did he want her to taste the taste of despair? Every time Yiqing Luo breathed, she felt an extreme pain coming from within her body. She held back and slowed her breathing. Girl, you have no way of contending against his strength, but your speed is definitely above his. Old Man Song's voice suddenly entered her mind. Speed? She couldn't even move now. How could they compete with him in speed? Furthermore, she couldn't see through the King of Darkness' attack trajectory. Apparently, the King of Darkness' speed was above hers. Old Man Song hesitated for a moment before spitting out 2 words. Blink. Blink. Yiqing Luo clutched her wound as she pursed her pink lips. Blink could indeed surpass the King of Darkness' speed. But she didn't want to expose the Azure Dew bracelet. Chapter 1695. Lass, I believe in your ability. Old Man Song could feel the worry in Yiqing Luo's heart as he laughed lightly. His tone was filled with trust. Yiqing Luo's pink lips pursed even tighter. Old Man Song's relaxed and trusting tone. It made her heart ache even more. She knew that Old Man Song was pretending to be relaxed in order for her to give it her all. Her slender fingers curled up tightly. Her fingertips had turned white from being clenched so tightly. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the King of Darkness. Vessel, how does it feel to wait for death in despair? King of Darkness's lips curled slightly as his eyes turned cold, like a wild beast eyeing its prey. He licked his lips greedily as though he was toying with his prey in the palm of his hand, which made him extremely satisfied. Yiqing Luo's breathing calmed down. Quietly staring at his figure. Tightly she shut her eyes. She didn't reply. Didn't reveal any fearful expression. There wasn't any hatred in her eyes. This caused the perverted feeling in the King of Darkness's heart to dissipate. His eyes turned cold as he congealed his profound yin qi once again as he attacked Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly. Suddenly her fingertips moved. The glower flame fan shot out a few strong air currents. In a split second her eyes were filled with a demonic red glow. It went straight into King of Darkness's eyes. At the same time, Yiqing Luo silently recited the blink movement secret method. Her figure swayed. In a blink of an eye she had already moved to the open palace door. She held onto the palace door to maintain her balance. Before King of Darkness could react, she swiftly stretched out her hand and hit a few acupoints on her body. Following that she took out some pills from the profound phoenix ring and swallowed them. In just a few breaths, Yiqing Luo had no way to do any simple treatment on herself. King of Darkness had already sensed the change in her aura. You. King of Darkness turned his head and followed the aura towards the palace door. His evil cold eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. As though he couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo actually had the ability to avoid his attack. After swallowing the pills, Yiqing Luo's pain was suppressed and her stamina gradually recovered. She held onto the palace gate and slowly straightened her body. That's not bad. Struggling before death makes me excited. King of Darkness couldn't be bothered to find out how Yiqing Luo managed to escape from his attack. In his eyes, no matter how Yiqing Luo tried to escape, they would all die in his hands. He sneered and his figure flickered. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sensed the fluctuation in the air, the feeling of flowing over. She furrowed her brows and reacted quickly. Using her footwork she immediately headed out of the palace. You think that I can't leave the dark sanctuary? The King of Darkness laughed sinisterly when he saw Yiqing Luo's actions. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Just as he stepped out of the palace gate, the King of Darkness appeared in front of her. His feet happened to be standing right outside the palace gate. That straight and slender figure, that black robe full of holes, fluttering in the wind. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted as she swiftly retreated. She thought that even though the King of Darkness had revealed his true body in a fit of rage, the King of Darkness still had a way to deal with him. But in the end he was still sealed by the saint-level seal. By right his true body should not be able to leave the dark sanctuary. But right now the King of Darkness was still able to stand at the entrance of the dark sanctuary's palace. He could leave the dark sanctuary's palace. And even if she dashed out of the palace gate, she was unable to break through that reverse enchantment. Looking at the astonishment in Yiqing Luo's eyes, King of Darkness gave a low laugh. Stretching out his hand he suddenly clasped Yiqing Luo's neck. Chapter 1696. The tightness on her neck made Yiqing Luo's face flushed red. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he gave a sinister mocking laugh. Little lass, you are indeed a talent. No wonder you can disrupt my plans time and time again. No wonder she was the vessel of the divine phoenix profound jade. At such a young age her willpower was so strong. She was even able to evade several strikes under his relentless attacks. Such innate talent. If she couldn't be used by him, he had to destroy her before she grew up. Otherwise she would be a hidden danger in the future. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. Her sharp fingers dug deep into the flesh of the King of Darkness. Her eyes were still cold and her aura was fully unleashed. She didn't look like she was being controlled by someone. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke with difficulty. Not only will I destroy your plans, I can also destroy you. King of Darkness's dark and deep eyes flashed. Following that he burst out into a cold laugh. Then let me see what other abilities you have. In King of Darkness's eyes, Yiqing Luo was a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. His eyes turned cold as he suddenly stretched out his other hand and dug towards Yiqing Luo's heart. Before I devour you, this piece of divine phoenix profound jade must not be wasted. His sinister voice was filled with coldness and ridicule. Just as his hand was about to reach Yiqing Luo's chest, all of a sudden, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The ball of light landed on the arm of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness screamed miserably. The hand which was on Yiqing Luo's neck was numbed by the lightning as it relaxed. Yiqing Luo's body fell limply onto the ground. She recited the incantation and her figure flashed. She immediately teleported away from King of Darkness's attack range. The lightning ball revolved around the arm of the King of Darkness, emitting sparks of electricity. The stinging pain from the electric shock and the numbness all over his body made his astonished expression look extremely comical. Thunderclap incantation. You know the thunderclap incantation. King of Darkness's voice was filled with disbelief. He looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing 10 meters away, and his eyes were filled with madness. There's still teleportation. How could anyone in the Nirvana realm use the secret arts of the immortal realm? He forcefully endured the electric current in his arm, his eyes filled with a thick malevolence. Who are you? Who the hell are you? The King of Darkness asked in a frenzy. A pair of eyes flushed red. Yiqing Luo's sharp senses detected a trace of extreme fear in his frenzied questioning. That's right. It was fear. The King of Darkness was afraid of the thunderclap art and teleportation. Just now he said, "Is this a secret technique of the divine world? Divine realm? The divine realm of the highest plane in the upper realm?" The King of Darkness was not the only one in disbelief. He was also stunned. Good. How did the reward of the Purgatory Pagoda become the reward of the divine world? I wonder. Old Man Tsong had always warned her not to casually use it. No, it's impossible for you to be her. Suddenly, the crazed King of Darkness started to laugh coldly. That crazy look on his face. He looked like a madman. He lowered his head and looked at his arm, which was still flowing with electricity. Suddenly, he clenched his fists tightly. A burst of profound yin qi instantly dispersed the layer of electricity. You are indeed not her. If it's her thunderclap art can shatter this king's physical body. Seeing the electricity dispersed, King of Darkness's eyes revealed an ecstatic expression. Chapter 1697. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Luckily, King of Darkness's attention was only focused on the secret manual. He didn't think about the azure dew bracelet. But who was the she that King of Darkness was referring to? The thunder crash arts which King of Darkness was afraid of, was executed by that she. That person, a single thunder crash arts could shatter King of Darkness's physical body? How powerful was that person? But it was because of the existence of that she. Now she could unleash her blink movement and thunder crash arts. I think that you can go against me just by relying on the thunder crash arts. King of Darkness saw Yiqing Luo's burning battle intent and snorted in disdain. When he first saw Yiqing Luo executing the thunder crash arts, his heart had indeed felt terrified. One must know that 10,000 years ago, the person who sealed him in the dark sacred region used this thunder crash arts to shatter his physical body. But this vessel was not able to unleash a tenth of the thunder crash arts' power. To him it was not a threat at all. On account of the thunder crash arts, I will not let you die so easily. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he charged forward with a dense profound yin qi. His voice paused as his smile turned sinister and demonic. I want to extract your soul. Devouring your soul, I will be able to inherit everything you know, including thunder crash arts. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with excitement. Apparently he was extremely interested in the thunder crash arts which shattered his physical body 10,000 years ago. Yiqing Luo looked at him coldly as she sneered, "Then you have to have the chance to chase up to me first." The moment her words ended, Yiqing Luo's body suddenly moved. This time coupled with the speed of the blink movement secret technique. King of Darkness was totally unable to see through Yiqing Luo's movements. On the contrary, when the blink movement was raised to the maximum, Yiqing Luo was able to see all of King of Darkness's attacks. When King of Darkness's attack was about to hit her, Yiqing Luo speedily executed her blink movement. Then a thunderclap incantation appeared on his fingertips. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A thunderbolt that was even more violent than the lightning ball just now struck down from the sky. Coincidentally, it landed on the King of Darkness. That head of black hair which was originally plotted by Yiqing Luo and exploded into curly hair. This time it was struck by the lightning even more messy and chaotic. You. The King of Darkness glared at her and cursed in her heart. She turned around and unleashed an even more ferocious attack. However, this time round the King of Darkness wanted to use his ability to suppress Yiqing Luo and use his speed to restrain her. But he was no match for Yiqing Luo's teleportation. They exchanged a few moves in a row. The King of Darkness' patience was running out. The attacks were gradually unable to hit Yiqing Luo as they gradually sped up, gradually becoming more ferocious. But he still wasn't able to touch the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. This caused the King of Darkness's mental state to explode. The anger in his heart was also growing. The King of Darkness was enraged. Yiqing Luo wasn't as relaxed as she looked on the surface. Using teleportation and the thunderclap incantation didn't mean that he didn't need to rely on any power. All these required the support of profound qi. Using two secret techniques at the same time required a large amount of profound qi. She could restrain the King of Darkness within a short period of time and not hurt herself. But her time was limited. Once the supply of profound qi was insufficient, she would probably deplete her profound qi and give the King of Darkness a chance. She only hoped that. Chapter 1698. Yiqing Luo continued to use the combination of the Glower Flame Fan and the Thunder Crash Manual to attack the King of Darkness. Teleportation became more and more agile under her control. The King of Darkness had no way of tracking her. In just a short while the situation between the two of them gradually reversed. More and more wounds appeared on the King of Darkness' body. He didn't know if it was because he was angry or because the time limit was almost up. The King of Darkness's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred. His gloomy gaze swept up the storm. The mysterious yin qi spread around his body, forming a huge vortex. In an instant all the power suddenly burst out. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. That terrifying and powerful energy made Yiqing Luo feel pressured. Her strength was far inferior to the King of Darkness. If the King of Darkness insisted on fighting her head-on, she had no chance of winning. She would never allow the King of Darkness to get close to her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. He quickly widened the distance between them. The King of Darkness stood rooted to the ground. The mysterious yin qi circled around his body and turned into a huge vortex. The vortex towered high, engulfing heaven and earth as if it wanted to break through the darkness domain. That powerful force was unstoppable. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She narrowed her eyes and unleashed her profound energy. Red light surged out from her body and slashed towards the King of Darkness. However, after her attack came into contact with the swirling vortex, it was as if she was about to explode. He was instantly devoured by the vortex and vanished. There wasn't even a flickering streak of light. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. He could feel that the dark force around the King of Darkness was still increasing. The vortex that was formed by the dense mysterious yin qi was also expanding continuously. Yiqing Luo's heart surged with an ominous premonition. What was the King of Darkness trying to do? What does he want to do? Oh no. Little girl, he wants to forcefully absorb your soul. Old man Tsong, who was hidden within the azure dew bracelet, sensed this powerful energy and immediately reacted, urgently calling out a warning. Yiqing Luo was shocked. He could still move forward and absorb her soul? Was there a need to be so heaven-defying? He shouldn't know the soul assimilating array, right? The soul assimilating array takes too long. How can he set it up by himself? Old man Tsong snorted. The dark spells that the pharaohs know were all taught by the King of Darkness. What do you think? Yiqing Luo remained silent. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was the ancestor of all dark curses. The soul assimilating array is an array that will only be used when absorbing a large number of souls. Old man Tsong continued to explain, what he wants to absorb is your soul alone. A soul assimilating spell is enough. Soul absorbing spell? Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. How do we stop it? When the King of Darkness was casting the curse, her attacks weren't able to affect him at all. Disrupt his spiritual power. Old man Tsong replied. Mental strength? That's right. Dark curses required mental power to cast. All he had to do was disrupt the King of Darkness' mental power. Naturally, this curse could not be continued. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. He took out a white jade bottle from the profound phoenix ring. That bottle gave off the exact same smell as the one she used to dupe Pharaoh He. She threw the bottle into the air and waved her glower flame fan. A hurricane swept up the bottle and sent it flying towards the direction of the King of Darkness. Dong! A loud crisp sound was heard. That bottle had yet to get close to the King of Darkness. Chapter 1699. The white medicinal powder started to fall. Yiqing Luo retreated to avoid it. The black profound yin qi wrapped the medicinal powder into a ball. Following that, a strong wind started to blow. The white powder covered the sky and earth as it flew towards her. F***K. Seeing this situation, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but curse. What the hell, couldn't they have a good fight? While conjuring the soul-absorbing spell, she could still use the profound yin qi to counterattack. The moment one came into contact with this white medicinal powder, one's mental energy would be suppressed. Even she would not be an exception. Yiqing Luo immediately displayed her footwork as she opened up the glower flame fan in her hands and created a whirlwind. She threw the medicinal powder towards the direction of the profound yin qi. At the same time, her figure flickered. She teleported to the side of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness's malicious eyes flashed. A sinister chill shot out from the bottom of his eyes. A burst of profound yin qi blocked Yiqing Luo's path. Yiqing Luo didn't bother with the profound yin qi. She moved agilely towards the King of Darkness. Her fingertips held onto another white jade medicinal bottle as she bit open the cap and poured it onto the King of Darkness. But just as the white jade medicinal bottle was about to fall, suddenly she saw the King of Darkness raise his head. A treacherous sneer appeared on that exquisite and bewitching face. His eyes, which were filled with profound yin qi, were filled with murderous intent. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She realized something. She smashed the medicinal bottle onto the King of Darkness's body. Following that, she silently chanted to teleport away. But it was too late. The corners of the King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as a sinister smile surfaced on his face. This was the moment he was waiting for. Waiting for Yiqing Luo to fall into his trap. The King of Darkness's hand gesture changed. Yiqing Luo only felt that her body had suddenly lost the ability to move. Following that, a tearing sensation spread from her heart to every corner of her body. She couldn't even teleport away. Enduring the pain that almost made her faint, she furrowed her brows and used her willpower to quickly move her body away. But her body seemed to be nailed to the ground. He stood perfectly straight on the spot, unable to move at all. Small vessel, no one in this world is able to escape from the soul-absorbing curse. The King of Darkness, who had his face covered in powder, laughed sinisterly as he looked at Yiqing Luo. He raised his sleeve and used the burnt sleeve of his robe to wipe the powder off his face. It didn't matter if the powder fell on his body. Yiqing Luo's soul was captured by the soul-absorbing curse. Even if he wasn't able to utilize his mental energy, he could easily swallow Yiqing Luo's soul. He laughed sinisterly, his eyes filled with a lustful and cold light. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she gritted her teeth and tried to move her body. She could clearly feel that the soul in her body was gradually being torn apart from this body. The sharp pain of being torn apart. It penetrated her soul as if it wanted to shatter it. The soul-absorbing spell could absorb a human's soul, forcefully separating the soul from the body. Yiqing Luo knew that once her soul left her body, the King of Darkness would definitely dig out her profound heart jade and devour her soul. Once the soul was devoured, her soul would scatter and she would disappear from this world for all eternity. Moreover, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet would be exposed. No way. She couldn't let her soul be absorbed. Still struggling, the King of Darkness looked at Yiqing Luo's determined gaze as his eyes were filled with ridicule. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Yiqing Luo's collar. Chapter 1700. Yiqing Luo's hair stood on end as a chill ran down her spine. That gaze made her feel extremely disgusted. But she had no chance to escape. She could only watch as the Empire of Darkness approached her. His face, which was filled with murderous intent and an evil smile, was pressed against her cheek. His slender fingers curled up slightly. Slowly he covered her chest. Yiqing Luo's petite body suddenly stiffened. A wave of humiliation welled up in his heart. She was furious and her eyes were burning. Suddenly she felt a sharp pain in her chest. Yiqing Luo's face instantly turned pale. His sharp fingers scratched the skin on her chest. A bone-chilling chill came from his fingertips. Gradually he delved into her body. Yiqing Luo understood. The King of Darkness did not want to humiliate her body. Instead, he wanted to dig out her profound heart jade. His fingers penetrated her chest bit by bit. The feeling of her soul being torn apart, the feeling of his fingers penetrating her skin. It was so painful that Yiqing Luo's eyes turned red and her face turned pale. The The King of Darkness was clearly doing this on purpose. He intentionally used this slow action to torment Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo knew what he was planning and naturally wouldn't make any noise to satisfy King of Darkness's perverted pleasure. Looking at Yiqing Luo, she was in so much pain that her forehead was filled with cold sweat. His entire body was drenched in sweat. The smile in the King of Darkness' eyes became even more unbridled. Even 10,000 years ago I had never met a woman as stubborn as you. If you didn't harm my interests perhaps, I might really fall for you. Yiqing Luo's stubbornness and her willpower. The King of Darkness had indeed been attracted. He admired Yiqing Luo's perseverance. It was a pity. She was a woman with such great talent and admirable perseverance. If I don't strangle her in the cradle, in the future, it would become an obstacle to his rule over the 4 realms. He would never allow any obstacles to appear by his side. Bah! Yiqing Luo spat out a mouthful of saliva as her eyes were filled with ridicule and disdain. She took a deep breath with difficulty and said with difficulty, "I feel disgusted." Every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. After saying that, she closed her eyes in pain. It was just 6 simple words, but they seemed to have exhausted all their strength. The excruciating pain he was enduring was also reaching his limit. His soul was still restlessly tearing apart. It was as if it wanted to break out of her body. The more she tried to suppress the breakthrough of her soul, the more she tried to do so. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like his body was about to explode. Yiqing Luo's pained expression had successfully pleased the King of Darkness. He laughed excitedly and increased the strength of his fingers. Ah! Yiqing Luo couldn't hold it in any longer as she cried out miserably. The King of Darkness' hand had already pierced through her chest. The ice-cold finger extended towards the location of her heart, towards the profound jade heart that was being nurtured. Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled in pain. The pain of her soul and body intertwining with each other caused her eyes to turn red. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged from the bottom of her heart. Boom! Just as the King of Darkness was about to touch the profound heart jade, suddenly from Yiqing Luo's body, a glaring red glow exploded. That red light was like a burning flame. The heat was so high that it seemed like it could melt everything in the world. The King of Darkness' hand was instantly retracted by the heat. Immediately following that, he quickly shifted his body and retreated out of the boundary of the red light. The moment he retreated, Yiqing Luo's body suddenly floated into mid-air. That glaring red glow encircled her entire body. Chapter 1701. Hot. The scorching burning sensation was burning her heart. Yiqing Luo only felt that she was being burned in a raging inferno. The intense heat caused her to moan uncontrollably. Her breathing was getting heavier and heavier. You lowly human from the lower realm, you can actually release the divine phoenix profound jade's energy? King of Darkness's shocked voice rang beside her ear. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with disbelief. He stared at the young lady who was wrapped in a strange flame. His gaze was fixated on her heart, which had a hole dug out. That bewitching fiery light came from her heart, which was also the profound jade heart. This was the divine phoenix profound jade heart's energy. Even if it was just 1/10,000th of its energy, that was enough to shake the heavens and earth in Nirvana realm. But Yiqing Luo was obviously a vessel which contained the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Why was she able to release the divine phoenix profound jade heart's energy? She could even make use of the divine phoenix profound jade heart to save her life. Nirvana realm actually had such an unfathomable profound cultivator. This vessel must die. And at this moment, Yiqing Luo totally didn't know how horrifying her current look was in the eyes of others. This familiar scorching feeling, she knew that the divine phoenix profound jade heart had helped her again. Previously under King of Darkness's attack, it was the divine phoenix profound jade heart who had helped her to block that attack. And this time the divine phoenix profound jade heart reacted again. A scorching burning sensation spread through her limbs and bones, spreading through every meridian in her body. Everywhere it went, Yiqing Luo seemed to feel the piercing pain from the scorching inferno. Lass, be careful. Just as Yiqing Luo was immersed in the scorching inferno burning her meridians, Old Man Song's reminder rang in her mind. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her eyes. He saw the King of Darkness charging over with a ferocious look on his face. The profound yin qi which gathered around him was so dense that it almost enveloped his entire body. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as her fingertips raised up reflexively. The glower flame fan had already drawn out numerous silver threads, entangling towards King of Darkness in all directions. He could move. Yiqing Luo's heart leapt with joy. He spread his arms wide and slowly descended to the ground from midair. Before Zhou Xian could stabilize himself, the feeling of his soul being torn apart assaulted him once more. Her face paled and her breathing quickened. Unless the person who cast the curse dispels the curse for you, otherwise, before your soul is extracted, this curse will always exist. Old Man Song was deeply worried. He could feel the pain that Yiqing Luo was experiencing at this time. Yiqing Luo's body swayed slightly as she half knelt on the ground. His soul was constantly being pulled in his body trying to break out. Little container, even if you have this heaven-defying profound jade heart, it's still useless in your hands. The King of Darkness totally disregarded Yiqing Luo's attack. He raised his hand and directly split apart the silver wires which Yiqing Luo shot over. The next moment he faced her once again, directly bypassing the hurricane created by Yiqing Luo's devouring flame fan, pouncing towards Yiqing Luo. His 5 fingers turned into a claw as a cold glint surfaced in his eyes, as he dug towards Yiqing Luo's chest once again. The terrifying energy charged against Yiqing Luo's soul. That hand touched her chest once again. The divine phoenix profound jade heart released a scorching heat, burning King of Darkness's hand. That heat made King of Darkness's brows crease tightly. But he didn't avoid it again.